So isoacid is the collective term used for branched chain fatty acid, which are mainly degradation product from branched chain amino acid naturally produced in the rumen of the cows. And mainly the isoacids affect or enhance the cellulolytic bacterial activity in the rumen. That's how it also improved the fiber digestibility.
Host of the Dairy Nutrition Blackbelt Podcast. My guest today is Dr. Uddin. I hope I pronounced that right. He got his BS from Bangladesh Agricultural University and his PhD from University of Wisconsin in Madison. He's a fairly recent assistant professor at the University of Connecticut, and he specializes in ruminant nutrition, especially with regards to efficiency and sustainability of animal agriculture. Welcome to the Black Belt.
Thank you so much, Bill, for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Last year, your group presented a few abstracts at ADSA on a fairly new, or actually it's old, but it's new again, additive called isoacids. I guess first, what is an isoacid, and what's the proposed mode of action for these things?
Excellent. As you pointed, isoacid has been quite a old. Studies have studied quite a bit, but it has been reinforced recent studies, right? So isoacid is the collective term used for branched chain fatty acid, which are mainly degradation product from branched chain amino acid naturally produced in the rumen of the cows, and mainly the isoacids affect or enhance the cellulolytic bacterial activity in the rumen. That's how it also improved the fiber digestibility. It also has shown that studies has shown that it could improve the mammary gland efficiency because it is associated with certain hormones which are associated with mammary gland efficiency as well.
So this is more than just a ruminal effect, is what you're saying?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
I was just going to say, as an aside, when I was in graduate school, my advisor did an experiment on these. So that was a long time ago.
Right.
But in your experiments, you talked about, you had a factorial experiment where you looked at forage level and isoacid addition. Why'd you do this experiment?
That's a very good point, right? So the reason we did in 2x2 factorial experiment, where we had high forage diet and low forage diet, mainly because you know that with the high forage, we typically have a lot of cellulolytic bacteria in the rumen, versus in the low forage diet, you have dominancy of amylolytic bacteria, right? So with the cellulolytic bacteria in the rumen, the requirement for isoacid typically increased. So we wanted to see if we supplement isoacid under high forage versus low forage diet, does it translate into differences in production performances as well as digestibility or not? So that was the motivation. So that was the main reason we did this study.
Briefly, just what were the treatments here?
So basically, as we said, it is a 2x2 factorial experiment. So we had two forage levels, 65% forage, we call high forage, versus 50% forage, we call low forage diet. And we had with isoacid, without isoacid, so 2x2 factorial. And we had a 10-week long randomized block design studies.
What were the forage sources or source?
So basically, the study was conducted in Midwest, in South Dakota. So we had mainly corn silage, haylage, and alfalfa hay as well. So those three were the main forages in the study.
A lot of measurements. Let's start with production measurements. What did you find out?
Our hypothesis was to see the whether there is any interaction or not, and our isoacid had an interaction with the forage level. So what it means that in the high forage diet, the supplementation of isoacid increased or boosted productivity by 7 to 8%, mainly milk production, mainly because the cellulolytic bacterial activity has been enhanced by the isoacid supplementation, right? And that has also been translated into, or it was due to the mainly improved digestibility, we saw in our study that dry matter and NDF digestibility increased quite a bit in the high forage diet. But if you go to the low forage diet, because of the interaction, right, as I mentioned, we did not see in productivity did not change, or digestibility did not change as well. So it was stable.
Do you think this is going to take some speculation on your part? If you had a high fiber diet, say a high byproduct diet, but lots of fiber, do you think you'd see the same thing, or does it have to be forage fiber?
I think that's our speculation, is that we had a very high actually if you look into our diet, right? So we had 18 versus 23% NDF versus NDF, whereas we added total forage NDF same, or we had total NDF same. That means the non-forage NDF came from highly digestible non-forage fiber, mainly soy hull. And we found that, as you know, soy hull is highly digestible, right? But the effect doesn't depend on probably type of fiber. So it's rather total fiber source.
Okay. So what did you find on methane? Since that's a big topic nowadays, did isoacids affect methane any?
That is interesting, right? So because we wanted to, that was the uniqueness of our study. We wanted to see the effect on methane emission, right? And what we found, again, we saw interaction between isoacid and forage level. And we saw that in the high forage diet, think about total methane production per cow increase, because, again, the digestibility of NDF and fiber and dry matter increased, right? So total amount of fermented fiber increased, so that led to high methane production in the high forage diet due to supplementation. But if you think about per unit of milk, due to increased milk production in the high forage diet, intensity of methane was same between without and with supplementation. Going into the low forage diet, isoacid actually reduced methane production by 9% and methane intensity by 18%, which is a significant amount of reduction, and mainly due to the propionate production, as shown that in previous studies as well, that the isoacid supplementation increased the propionate production, which is a hydrogen consuming path, and that way reduce the input for the methanogen to reduce methane production. So we saw a reduction quite a bit of in low forage diet.
Evonik Animal Nutrition is committed to ensure food security and safety while reducing the ecological footprint of animal farming. Its products and services use evidence-based solutions that seek to promote animal welfare and reduce reliance on natural resources. All this is underpinned by long-standing industry partnerships and deep customer understanding. Evonik's focus on efficiency, sustainable, healthy nutrition, and collaborations with livestock farming partners creates value for customers and consumers.
I guess you've done a lot of work with methane. How would, with relative to reduction in methane, how did this additive rank with other ones? Is it good, but medium, high, low?
So that is very interesting. So our lab works with diet and feed additives mainly, right? So our goal is to find additives that can boost productivity at the same time, if possible, to reduce methane emission, right? So this additive is unique in a sense that it can reduce, depending on scenario, dietary scenario, either can reduce methane emission or improve productivity. So, but some additives we know that very effective, but cannot boost the productivity or enhance productivity. That reduce the enthusiasm of the producer to adopt it, right? So we have been trying to understand if we combine different feed additives, either same feed additives or multiple feed additives together, to find a blended feed additives that can help to reduce methane while simultaneously can boost the productivity. In that way, it can compensate the cost of the feed additive, so the adoption would be increased. So I would say this is unique in a sense that it can increase productivity and at the same time reduce the enteric methane emission in low forage diet conditions.
Well, great. This has been interesting. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you again. Thank you for having me.